Why do those who seem to hate us the most seem to have a fetish for our sexualities and genders? Show off your pride with official PBR pillows, shirts, beach towels, and more, only available on the PBR merchandise store linked down below. Welcome everyone to Power Rainbows. I'm of course your host, Professor Pride, and on today's show, we're talking about why homophobic and transphobic people often fetishize lesbians, gays, and transgender people. Now this topic was suggested to us by one of our viewers, Chloe Sky, so big shout out and thank you for suggesting we cover this. But before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, onto the show. What we do when no one is watching is sometimes baffling. For instance, many people online would say things behind a keyboard that they would never say to someone in person because they feel like their computers or smartphones offer them immunity to the consequences. But one of the more interesting parts of society is learning about what humans do when they feel like even other users online aren't watching them. It is not uncommon to find a homophobe commenting slurs online, or even bullying LGBTQ people in real life, but then, when they think no one is watching, they are the most likely candidates to search adult websites for lesbian or gay pornography. In fact, the top adult website on the internet, Pornhub, does yearly studies on who their viewers are and what they are watching. And consistently, they find 37% of viewers of gay male pornography are women. And gay pornography is the #1 top category for women over the age of 45. Even more obvious of an example here would be straight men, who overwhelmingly enjoy watching two lesbians kiss or have sex. One of the most commonly searched terms on sites like Pornhub for straight men is the word lesbian. Even further examples can be found in our TV shows, movies, and music. Many times, lesbians kissing or having sex is portrayed in our TV shows like Friends, where two of the main characters on the show offer to give up their Manhattan apartment for the chance of seeing two lesbians go at it. Or movies and music, where we hear of two women kissing and trying to be turned by a man. And while I want to note here that sex is perfectly natural and healthy to have, as long as it's between consenting individuals and doesn't hurt anyone else, no one should mind. For that reason, even though I personally believe in exclusive gay relationships for myself, I would never shame other individuals for having threesomes, orgies, open relationships, or whatever else they want to do. Again, as long as it's consensual to all those involved, and it doesn't hurt anyone else, none of us should care what they do. But when it comes to this topic in particular, it actually does way more harm than you might expect. At first thought, you might assume a straight guy watching lesbians kiss is harmless, or straight women watching gay men go wild is insignificant. But there's a clear difference in how these acts are enjoyed compared to when a gay man like myself watches two or more guys in a film scene together. For a young 12-year-old me, it was healthy to explore this side of the internet to find what my relationships would look like. I was never taught in school or at home how normal and natural gay relationships are, so I went searching online to find what my life would look like someday. And to be fair, we've covered on this show before how the gay hookup culture nowadays is majorly caused by the gay teenagers only finding examples of their love on adult websites and beginning to substitute love with sex at an early age. But nonetheless, it is healthy to allow someone to explore new feelings and see if they like it. Just like with a relationship, it's healthy to allow your partner to experiment with new positions, toys, or even locations to see what they like the most and make things more exciting for you both. And for this reason, it's not a bad thing for men to watch gay men pornography to see if they like it, and to dabble a little in the thoughts if they think they might be bisexual or gay, just like I did. Just like it's not a bad thing for women to experiment and watch lesbians go at it either, because newsflash, experimentation is a good thing. But what we're talking about today is men who watch lesbian porn and women who watch gay men films. And that is entirely different. Sure, there is no world where I would ever ask us to petition the government to restrict websites from allowing you to see videos on the internet. After all, I'm on the internet too, and otherwise you wouldn't be watching our show right now. However, the problem with men watching lesbians or women watching gay men is their mentality while doing so. If it were purely a visual thing for straight men and women to get aroused, they would watch a version of themselves on screen, or at the very least, a version of themselves they would like to see on screen. For example here, men would watch POV or point of view films of a man having sex with a woman, and vice versa. This way, they can picture themselves in that scene and get aroused by the thought of being in that scene. But for a man to watch two lesbians together, there is no point of view he can interject himself into that scene, even mentally speaking. And thus, it's not the act of sex itself which the men are watching for. Instead, it's objectivity they are watching for. When a straight man watches two lesbians, psychologically speaking, what happens in his brain is he begins to objectify the two women. Shortly after, the two women in the scene merely become objects acting out a scene in front of him for his enjoyment. They are not lesbians in his mind anymore. They are simply objects to him. The same thing goes with straight women watching gay men act out a scene together. They are no longer making love, but instead they are just objects in that straight woman's eyes, acting out a scene for her to enjoy. This reduces the people having sex on film to merely things that are only wanted for consumption by a privileged group who truly think they are better than gay people. And I know some straight men out there will try to defend their actions and say they don't reduce the actors or actresses on screen to mere objects, but that's not true. Statistically speaking, straight men only search for femi-lesbians or feminine lesbians. They hardly ever search for or click on videos with masculine women on screen. The same thing goes for straight women, who statistically speaking only search for and click on videos of masculine men, instead of searching for femboys or twinks. And it's these femi-lesbians or masculine gay men which are not just seen as objects, but also seen as a challenge for the straight man or woman viewer to convert. This is exemplified best in the comments on sites like Pornhub, where straight men will comment on lesbian videos telling the actresses that they haven't met a good dick yet, or straight women commenting on gay men videos telling the actors on screen that they haven't met a great woman like her yet. Researcher Morgan Paul illustrates this point best by saying, quote, "This illustrates how they don't see women as human beings, capable of making their own decisions, but instead as helpless creatures that need to be taught." And that's what watching adult films does to the viewer. It's meant to make us feel like we're in the dominant position, and we have control over the actors on screen. After all, we're able to pick which film we want to watch in the first place, pause the video, rewatch the scene we like the most over and over, and fast forward to the good parts. It's meant to make us feel like we have control over someone else. But the way straight men fetishize lesbians or straight women fetishize gay men has clearly crossed that boundary, because it's not just the video they want to control anymore. It's who the actors are attracted to that they want to control instead. The worst part of it comes later. No pun intended there, I promise. The same people who watched hours of gay films just to enjoy themselves never really come down from that high of feeling in control over gay people or lesbians. Instead of calming down like the rest of us do afterwards, they actively search for LGBTQ channels like ours to condemn homosexuality, because they still feel like they have this power over us. After all, they just quote-unquote controlled gay people for a few brief moments, so why not try to do that in real life? On the surface, it feels hypocritical of them to condemn something they just got done enjoying, but we have to remember, they aren't enjoying watching two lesbians kiss. Instead, they enjoy the feeling of power and dominance over the scene, and they enjoy the dominance of the two women being merely objects and things whose only goal in life is for their enjoyment. And none of this even mentions the fact that before on our show, we've even covered how, scientifically speaking, there's been studies on this. And the more homophobic a person is, the more secretly closeted they are. So all of this does tend to run together. I know someone out there is going to argue that gay people watch gay films all the time, and it's perfectly fine. But there's a clear difference in what we search for and what we watch. Statistically speaking, gay men and women search for and click on the more romantic scenes. We watch the kissing, the talking, and the foreplay, just as much as we watch the later parts of the scene. But straight women skip these parts altogether, more often than not, and thus, straight people aren't learning how normal and natural our sex can be. Even in a setting like an adult film, they aren't seeing how the two actors can express their love for each other through sex. Instead, they are just objects for their enjoyment. Sure, the same studies by Pornhub tell us that for gay men, the most commonly searched term is for, quote, straight first time, followed by the second most popular, quote, straight guys category. And the argument could be made that gay men and women do similar things in reverse to the straight community. But again, there are a few clear differences here. First, when the scene is over, it's over for us. We don't go searching for straight people to bully online because we fully know the scene is over and we're not dominant over that character anymore. And we know that it's a character in the first place. Secondly, when it comes to the psychology of why we're searching for straight guys or straight first time, it stems from the fact that we were viewed in society as straight at one time in our lives. So in our minds, we're going back in time and putting ourselves in that position in a POV fashion. That's the same reason why many of my generation and older search for and watch twink videos, because we didn't come out until later in life, and we missed those opportunities straight people had when they were in college or fresh out of high school. So we watch POV videos of younger gay adults. So for a brief amount of time, we can imagine how hot or sexy it would have been if we came out of the closet sooner. As I said in the beginning, I was a closeted teenager, and I deeply appreciated being able to see what sex was going to be like for me someday, because it helped normalize my feelings inside. But when you skip past the foreplay, and then continue to feel that dominance over gay people long after you're done watching, that's when it becomes hurtful to others. And that's where it's no longer a consensual act between all parties involved. Aside from this, straight men and women also search for transgender pornography. When it comes to this, again, experimentation is healthy, and there is no question that any sense of bullying or trying to control the actor's gender on screen is empirically wrong. But you might be surprised by my answer here. I actually think straight men and women watching trans porn is more healthy than you might assume. Sure, if that person bullies the actors with comments saying they need to figure out their gender, or if they continue their dominance afterwards on other spaces of the internet and search out trans people in real life to bully them, that's unquestionably wrong. Condemning the trans community is terrible and goes against every scientific law because gender is obviously valid. But keep in mind, on the other side of this, we condemn the super straight movement for saying someone is so straight they can only go out with a cisgender person. And because gender is valid as a trans person, just as much as the gender of a cisgender person, the super straight movement is terrible, obviously. So for people to search for trans adult films is perfectly fine. But bullying the actors in the comments or bullying the trans community afterwards is terrible. Again, this goes back to experimentation. There's nothing wrong with someone watching a film to try to figure out what they like and what they don't like. The problem becomes when the viewer starts to feel like they have this power over the actor, or they feel like they can control the actor's sexual orientation or gender identity. The problem becomes when they still feel like they are dominant after they stop watching the video and go on to bully others online or in person. So I don't have a problem with straight men watching gay men adult films. I don't have a problem with straight women watching lesbian films. And I don't have a problem with anyone searching for trans films. Because experimentation is healthy for your brain and your body. If I wasn't allowed to search for gay films when I was a teenager, and most people still thought I was straight, my teenage years would have been much more difficult and a lot more blue. But I do have a problem with straight men watching lesbian films, straight women watching gay men adult films, and especially have a problem with shows and movies putting those scenes in their programming. It's no longer about experimentation in these cases. It's objectifying homosexuals and making straight people feel like they are the dominant sexuality, where they can control our sexuality or gender. And there's no question that it's wrong for these people to step away from that moment and continue bullying the actors or the LGBTQ community on other platforms. There is no question how wrong it is of them to fetishize something and then openly condemn the very thing they just got done enjoying. Like I said in the beginning, sex is perfectly natural and healthy to have, as long as it's between consenting individuals and doesn't hurt anyone else. None of us should mind. But even when someone is by themselves, doing things on their own, in private, that doesn't mean everyone involved consents to that situation of getting bullied online. That doesn't mean no one gets hurt, because when these people start to feel dominant, not just in the moment, but dominant over our sexuality and gender later on, that's when other people are clearly getting hurt. Anyway, that's all for our episode today. If you like our show and want to support our education, please consider becoming a member of our channel for exclusive behind-the-scenes content and bloopers by hitting the join button down below, or getting yourself some awesome LGBTQ merchandise on the PBR store, linked in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, comment down below your LGBTQ-friendly thoughts, hit that rainbow subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes of the show, and share this video with others. As always, I'm your host, Professor Pride. Have a gay day, everyone, and bye for now.